First story. Pull that thing out on the subway? Watch a queen turn your creepy moment into a comedy show. This happened a few years ago, 22 at the time, when my childhood best friend was visiting me in NYC. Anyone who has ever been to New York is probably familiar with how colorful the subway can be. My best friend is one of the most outgoing, extroverted, unapologetically outspoken people you could ever meet, and it was her first time in any big city. So she was positively living for the platform musicians, the mariachi bands in the cars, the breakdancers, etc. During one trip into Queens, there was a man on the Q train dressed in a terrifying Ratty Bunny costume and telling the most awkward jokes into a child's Mother Goose microphone and amp toy. And while I was deeply, deeply creeped out, Bestie was all energy and excitement. Nothing can faze her. Her vibe cannot be killed. This would prove to be Subway Creep's downfall. The incident occurred during the second week of her visit. It was around 8 p.m. on a Thursday, and Bestie, me, and another friend of mine, also female, were on the A train. Our car was pretty empty. Aside from the three of us, there were maybe 3 other solo women, an elderly mother plus adult daughter pair, an elderly man, and Subway Creep. Subway Creep was in one of the 2-seater benches at the end of the subway car, perpendicular to our group, wearing a gray Nike sweatsuit. For those not familiar with the NYC subway system, the A train runs express between 125th and 59th Street. As the train departed out of the 125th Street station, Subway Creep proceeds to take his custard chucker out of his pants and started going to town. Everyone in the subway car freezes. We're all putting on the patented NYC mind your own business, see no evil, hear no evil attitude, but the disgust and unease is palpable. I assume this is part of what Subway Creep got off on, because he kept staring at different targets, particularly elderly mother plus daughter pair. Everyone is tense, a little afraid, and trying to avoid looking at him. Except my bad bitch of a bestie. The discomfort in the air is thick as a cloud, until my best friend lets out the loudest, most disrespectful laugh I have ever heard in my entire life. It's the kind of laugh that can only be done with mouth open and tongue sticking out. It's the kind of laugh that is probably copyrighted by either Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. And it immediately banishes back the discomfort in the air, like Samwise Gamgee holding up the light of Arendelle in Shelob's lair. She proceeds to yell, "This motherfucker got his C out," whilst whipping out her phone and starting to record Subway Creep. She then continues to cackle as the light from her flash shines on him like a spotlight. There are literal tears of laughter in her eyes, and every so often she wheezes from the sheer depth of her hilarity. Her amusement becomes infectious. In the next moment, most of the other people on the subway car are also laughing. At Bestie's enthusiasm, at her animated amusement, and at Subway Creep, who has folded in on himself in shame now that his power has been stripped and he's been reduced to a limp clown by the indomitable force of my bestie's derisive laughter. She is merciless. As he shrinks away, she urges, "Nah, why you shy now? Keep going. He cannot possibly." At that point, the subway pulls into the 59th station finally, and Subway Creep snatches up his backpack and literally runs off the train. After that, several of the other passengers, including mother plus daughter pair, start chatting and laughing with my bestie as we continue on our outing. Later on the evening, my other friend who was with us mentioned how Bestie's reaction turned a harrowing moment into such a memorable, hilarious one. Bestie truly doesn't understand the harrowing part, but agrees with the hilarious part. She is an icon. She is my now second story. My landlord thought he could pull one over on me, but ended up learning the meaning of "you should have read the fine print before you signed it." Edit for clarity. In Germany, it is common to have indefinite rental contracts, which do not have a set end date and remain in effect until termination, usually by the tenant. Some context. I live in Germany, which has extremely strong tenants' rights. I've been living in my apartment for about 8 years now. About 1 year after I first moved in, I got a letter from the company that owns my apartment building. In short, it said this: Dear Mr. X, we are canceling your existing rental contract. If you wish to continue renting this apartment, please sign this new contract / with higher rent / or move out within 30 days. This scared the hell out of me. I was living in a city where the rent prices were skyrocketing, and I had only just managed to find a long-term apartment I could afford. As soon as I began looking at my options, it became clear that I was either going to have to fight what was essentially an eviction or move back to the US and start building my life again just after I had finally found some stability. After I asked around a bit, someone tipped me off to something called a reditor, which is essentially a non-profit group that advocates for tenants' rights and gives its members the opportunity to get legal advice regarding their rights as tenants. I looked one up near me and booked it over to their office. I explained my situation, filled out some paperwork, and went to speak with the group's lawyer. I showed her the letter and my current contract, and she looked over it for a few minutes without saying a word. After what felt like an eternity, she looked at me and said in her most diplomatic German legalese, "You have nothing to worry about." This letter is bullshit, admittedly paraphrased, but that's what it boiled down to. She then turned to a page of the contract and pointed out a single line in it. No changes may be made to this contract unless both parties consent to the proposed changes. In other words, as long as I refuse to sign the new contract, they can't do anything to me. The group's lawyer then sent a letter on my behalf to the company. I received a copy of it for my records, and essentially, it told the company that they would find themselves in some major trouble with the government if they continued to pursue the matter further. About a month went by and I heard nothing further. Then one day a letter from the company arrived. The company basically admitted defeat and tried to cover its tail by saying that the letter was sent in error by an employee who is no longer with the company. For the next 7 years, it became an annual ritual. Company sends ominous letter telling me I'm getting kicked out. I forward the letter to the reditor, and the reditor's lawyer sends them a letter telling them to stick the letter where the sun don't shine. And then, after attempt 8, the lawyer sent them another letter telling them to cut the crap and stop sending these letters every year. I haven't heard from them since.